Our national college football host very intrigued about Kenny Dillingham and Auburn?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Spencer McLaughlin, host of Locked On College Football, reached out to me and said, hey, I want to talk about Auburn and Kenny Dillingham if you've got time. I said, yeah, sure. So here's that conversation. This is from Locked On College Football.
Kenny Dillingham, one-time offensive coordinator at Auburn University, Zach, is someone I think the Tigers would be wise to consider. He has made it clear he doesn't want to leave Arizona State. But here's the thing. The resources available at Auburn are higher than what they are at Arizona State. That's my read on the situation. His salary could go up. His assistant pool could go up. The recruiting potential is higher. Not that Arizona State isn't a good job. I believe that it is. I think Auburn is a better one. And if I'm Kenny Dillingham, I would go to everyone involved with the program externally, not the players and your staff or anything like that. I would go externally and say, hey, are we really sure that we can make the necessary investments to be a contender in the Big 12 year in and year out? If the answer to that question is yes, NIL is good, we're okay there, then you probably stay at your alma mater. But if not, I think he'd at least consider it.
Yeah, and I think he's considering it now, Spencer. Wasn't at Auburn very long, but I do get the read that this is one of the names that John Cohen, Auburn AD, would be interested in being Auburn's next head coach. I mean, why not, right? I mean, this is a young up-and-comer, would provide a ton of energy. I mean, you talk about a spark for a program that's historically decent, historically good, and has been the worst era in Auburn football history. You talk about bringing in a young guy like Kenny Dillingham. I mean, that could, reignite a fan base that's already been pretty passionate. It really hasn't been a ton of drop off there. But yeah, I mean, you said all the reasons why Auburn would be a better fit or have at least more to offer than Arizona State. But I'll push back just for the sake of conversation. Like, we're in this mindset now as a sport where it's college football playoff or bust. And I think it's easier to get to the postseason in Arizona State than it is at pretty much any team in the SEC. And so that I think is the one thing against it. And of course, his alma mater and all of that. But I think Auburn's got a shot at it for sure. Is it the most likely option for the Tigers? No, I don't think so. But I do think that they will go up and down that tree several times and make Kenny Dillingham say no.
I think the playoff question is schedule dependent because in these super conferences, we know not all schedules are created equal.
Right.
And in the last several years, I think we have seen that play out in a number of different ways. But I still think I fundamentally agree. I'd rather try and climb through the Big 12, though you have some disadvantages. I mean, you look at where Kenny Dillingham was with ASU when he got there. They went 3-9 in his first year, and they were coming off recruiting sanctions. They were coming off poor performances. It was lifeless. And what he has done has been really impressive. And if you like that sort of track record and say, hey, I think that's translatable to Auburn, a place he's at least a little familiar with, sure, I don't think you're crazy. I really don't. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that Kenny Dillingham sticks to his word, which I think is more likely than not. I just don't think it's a 100% done deal. If that winds up being the case, where do you want Auburn to turn?
I think the most likely option is Jon Sumrall, of course, over at Tulane. That was the loudest name that we heard even before Hugh Freeze was let go and then immediately after. And it's been pretty steady, Spencer. And so I think there's two ways to look into that. Is like, okay, yeah, this was what we heard before Freeze was hired. It's what we heard right after. It's what we've heard every step of the way. And ultimately, it might be the last name that we hear. But how often does that happen? How often is like the obvious hire usually the one that follows through? At Auburn, that hasn't really been the case. So I'm curious to see if that's an argument for or against Jon Sumrall. It's kind of a weird way to put it, but I do think that that's something that doesn't typically happen where you're kind of the leader throughout the entire thing.
It's funny that you frame it that way, because one example I can think of is Kenny Dillingham when he got hired to Arizona State, because he'd been around at several spots. He was the OC at Oregon in Lanning's first year, and they were having success. And then the ASU job comes open, and it was, I think Dillingham's going to be. I think really seems like Dillingham's a guy. There were a couple other potential candidates, but then.
And the alma mater thing, played into that too, right? I think if the Auburn job wasn't open and the Kentucky job was, I think it'd probably be more of a sure thing for Sumrall as far as being tied to Kentucky for that same reason. We continue our conversation with Spencer McLaughlin in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Supply House. Supply House is the best place to buy your plumbing, HVAC, electrical items. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep as early as tomorrow. With over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from those trusted brands in business, Supply House has you covered. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Join the free Trademaster program today. You'll get a ton of perks like priority shipping, dedicated phone line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with our friends at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you just want to get on and ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. They've got it all. Including your Auburn basketball lines. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
The other interesting thing that I've thought about with this, Dillingham obviously loves ASU, and you mentioned him being a spark. That is what has made him such a good fit for Arizona State in a similar way, little different, but a similar way that Deion Sanders was a spark at Colorado. It was just lifeless. It was down. There was no juice, no energy, but there was none of that. Every time Kenny Dillingham steps to the podium to talk, he is being authentically himself. And he sounds like a guy who is insanely passionate about leading his program to the highest level that he can. And I think that's why it has worked at Arizona State, because they needed that. And he's an alum. But think about this angle. If you're an Arizona State fan saying, man, I never want to leave Kenny Dillingham. Auburn, for each of their last couple of coaches, has bought them out before the end of the contract. If, let's say in 3 years' time, Dillingham goes to, he goes in 2026 and he's there for 3 seasons and it doesn't work out, a reunion at Tempe, if you're not pleased with the coach you found to replace him, I don't think that would be off the table whatsoever for either party.
Yeah, maybe so. Auburn's trying to end that track record, right? Like, that's the goal, is to not have to do this.
The AD has to get this right or he's done, right?
Cohen, yeah, for sure, 100%. Which leads me to think, like, okay, is Sumrall the guy? John Cohen, he didn't get to do the hire for the top 15 basketball job when it came open. Bruce kind of stepped away a few weeks before the season. His son was kind of, named the head coach. He whiffed on Freeze, and I think he really thought he had Lane Kiffin the first time around, and that fell apart at the last hour. He settled with Freeze. Cohen strikes me as a guy who wants to swing for the fences here, and he hasn't really been able to yet. He was about to with Kiffin, didn't work, and then he saw that. That's part of the basketball thing, not to get into the weeds that much, but I think the issue was Bruce wanted him to name his son coach in waiting, and Cohen wouldn't do it because he's like, this is a top 15 job. we can go get somebody and make a huge splash, which is probably true. That's probably true. Didn't get to do it, though. That is true. And so now, is there going to be more pressure on him to swing for the fences that he's putting on himself, or maybe the fan base is putting on him? Regardless, yeah. And I don't know if Jon Sumrall answers that. Does that scratch that itch? I'm not sure. I think Sumrall's a good coach.
Is there any element?
A really good coach.
You've brought up how Sumrall was an early name and he's been in the cycle for a long time, and fans have heard his name. Everybody that didn't know who he was now is aware of who Jon Sumrall is and what his credentials are.
Sure.
Is there an element of softening on that idea when he was a name that came to mind immediately because it's gone on for so long? Possibly. Of what you see with a variety of players? You've heard this conversation with LeBron James or Aaron Judge in Major League Baseball. Is there name fatigue of still this guy, like, is that taking the shine potentially off of who Jon Sumrall is as a head coach, which is a guy who has experience in the South, has been at two different schools in two different conferences that are on different levels of football, similar, but the American's tougher, and he's winning at a high level at both?
Yes, I think so. And so if Jon Sumrall's name wasn't mentioned, it was mentioned, weeks after, others. Possibly. I still think there'd be more of a spark with, a Dillingham, or I know he's got an extension, but like Rhett Lashlee, or, somebody like that, that's one at the P4 level.
I don't think Lashlee would leave after getting that extension. He's got so much money at SMU, and he's in the ACC.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you talk about an easy
I would rather be the head coach at SMU than Auburn right now.
It's a better path for sure. Some of these guys, though, won in the SEC, and like that does have some play. It's not going to have the same play for everyone. Like recruits pick different schools for different reasons. It's going to be the same with coaches. So the right fit is going to be out there for sure. I think Sumrall is a guy that wants in the SEC. I think Sumrall is a fit at Auburn. And ultimately, if I had to guess, that's who John Cohen will go with.
Zach Blackerby, Locked On Auburn, keeping us up to date with the Tigers as always. I enjoy our segments together. I really do. It's a fun time.
A long time, buddy.
Appreciate that. The SEC is a conference that I'm sticking with for segment number 2. Not so much for segment 3, but in segment 2, who's winning the SEC? I'll tell you next.
Auburn.
All right, Zach, calm down. Calm down.
Always fun to chat with Spencer. Be sure to give Locked On College Football some love and your attention, and we'll see you next time. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And if you're tuning in on audio, please subscribe. Leave us a review. Helps the show out a ton. Thank you. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.